Hi everybody, it's Dr. Chabot. In this video, we're going to dive into an example applying Gauss's law to a solid sphere. So here I have a solid sphere and it has a total charge Q. So let me say here that it has total charge Q. And for now, we're going to say that that charge Q is uniformly distributed throughout its whole volume. So this would be an example of a problem that would be quite hard to find from the electric field adding up all of our tiny little dE's from each tiny little volume, and I would have like a K dQ over R squared. This would be doable but hard, right? To picture each tiny little dQ and then add up if we want to get, say, for example, the electric field here. If we want to find the electric field outside, we would have, a big integral and some math to be doing. And so what we're going to do instead is we're going to apply Gauss's law to this scenario. So let's make the first part of this problem and we'll phrase it as find the electric field for some distance r greater than the radius, so outside of this object. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to copy this drawing and then I will shrink it down a little because we're going to be looking outside of it. And so outside of it, I'm going to then draw my Gaussian surface. And my Gaussian surface, again, is this imaginary surface that I'm using that I can talk about the flux through it. So that's my Gaussian surface. I choose it with r greater than r because that's where I'm trying to find the field in this scenario. The left-hand side of Gauss's law, E dot dA, well, again, if I look at this and I just kind of picture each little dA of my surface, and then I picture the electric field from each one, well, I do still have spherical symmetry because I'm putting my Gaussian surface with this other sphere at the center. There's no reason that each part of my surface wouldn't experience the same electric field. So I can go through these same ideas where I say on the left-hand side that E is parallel to dA and constant for all parts of my Gaussian surface. And so I end up with just E times the adding up over the whole closed surface, the dA. This dA is always the surface area of the Gaussian surface. And so that's still giving me the same result we derived previously, which is E times 4 pi r squared. So this is always the result for spherical symmetry. All right, so our left-hand side is done. Right-hand side, if we remember, the right-hand side of Gauss's law is Q enclosed over epsilon naught. So in this case, what am I enclosing? Well, I'm enclosing the total charge. So this is nice and easy. It's Q over epsilon naught. And now I do my last step where I set the left-hand side equal to the right-hand side. And so I end up with this result where I have E times 4 pi r squared equals Q over epsilon naught. And again, remember, it's E that I'm trying to find. And so I get this result that E is equal to 1 over 4 pi epsilon naught times Q over r squared. The same as a point charge. That's not necessarily obvious to start with, right? That we would get the exact same result for a solid sphere as we do for a point charge. So the sphere looks just like a point charge when you're outside of it. So that's our kq over r squared, and this is going to drop off just like a point charge. Imagine if we had to do this nice messy k dq over r squared and do all of that just to end up with it looking like a point charge. So Gauss's law already has proven itself to be quite powerful. Now let's do an even more complicated one where we actually look inside the sphere. There are electric fields inside materials, and so if we now say part B is to find the electric field for R less than R, then we're going to be trying to figure out what the electric field is inside of this sphere. And again, that would be a very complicated thing to do from our first principles, as you might say. But in the case of, and I'm going to blow it up because now I'm looking inside, in the case of Gauss's law, we're going to see that it just involves us thinking about geometry a little bit. Okay, so now because I'm looking R less than R, my Gaussian surface is going to be inside the thing. So this is my imagined Gaussian surface, which I need because I need to be talking about flux lines through this surface and how much charge is enclosed in this surface. That's the heart of Gauss's law. And so we can see then that has some variable little r that's inside of it. So that's going to allow me to find the electric field at some little r less than capital R. Well, it turns out, right, if we just go through this and we do the left-hand side, we'll integral E dot dA. Even though I moved this Gaussian surface inside, it still has all of the same arguments that can be made for what E and dot dA is, where E is still always going to be parallel to dA. E is still always going to be constant on my surface. And the total surface area is still 4 pi r squared. So this is still E times 4 pi r squared still, right? And it's still always the Gaussian surface on that left-hand side. So that's going to be the left-hand side. And now it's going to be the right-hand side that gives us a little bit of a headache. And that's because we have to figure out what Q enclosed is in order to plug that into Q enclosed over epsilon naught. So I'm no longer enclosing the whole charge, right? I am now enclosing only the part of the charge that's inside that that portion of the cylinder, of the sphere, right? So I'm only enclosing some of it. So to get our Q enclosed, we are going to write this using a density. So our Q enclosed can be written as if we know our density, so this would be our density, times the amount of volume that's enclosing charge. So the amount of volume that is enclosing charge. So in this case, the amount of volume enclosing charge is the volume that I have shaded in that picture, because that's the volume that's enclosing charge. The density is my charge density. So here we would have that rho, if we want to talk about it, is going to be our total charge, or in general, it's going to be charge per volume. It's a volume charge density. And it's going to be equal to our total charge divided by our total volume if rho is uniform. So if you remember in the original statement of the problem, I did say that this Q is uniformly distributed throughout the volume. So if it's a uniform distribution of charge, then that density is simply, well, how much total charge do you have over how much total volume? So if we go ahead and see what this works out to, then we have Q enclosed is equal to rho, which is our total charge, so Q total over the total volume. And so I'm going to write here, just so we have this equation, Q total over V total times the volume enclosing charge. This is one that you'll want to keep and use. Hopefully the concept of it makes a lot of sense in terms of how we're going to get how much charge is in this one part of this larger thing. And so what we end up with here is I just write Q over my total volume is 4/3 pi capital R cubed. That's the volume of my total sphere. So that's my rho, times the volume enclosing charge, which is 4/3 pi, and then the volume of just that shaded region, little r cubed, because again, that's the volume of that shaded region over here. And so we can simplify this, and we see then that the 4/3 pi's cancel, and we just get Q times essentially the ratio of these volumes, which is little r cubed over big R cubed. So that's my Q enclosed. I can now set the left-hand side equal to the right-hand side for Gauss's law. So the left-hand side is simply E times 4 pi little r squared, and then equals my right-hand side, which is 1 over epsilon naught times Q, then my Q enclosed, which is Q times little r cubed over big R cubed. And so when I simplify this and I solve it for E, because again, E is what I want, then I get that E is equal to, and again, I like to keep the 1 over 4 pi epsilon naught out front because that's just my Coulomb constant K. I can see that my r squareds cancel out 2 of my other little r squared, so I just end up with an r over a capital R cubed. So I end up with, sorry, I lost my Q, so I'm going to write it up here as Q times little r over big R cubed. And so this is going to be my result for inside the sphere. Notice that this goes linearly with R. So it goes linearly with R inside. So if I look at a plot of the electric field as a function of R, now that I've solved for it inside and outside, well, inside, when I have a uniform charge distribution, it's going to go linearly and grow linearly with R. And then outside, it's going to drop off just like a point charge, and it's going to drop off as 1 over R squared. Okay, so to recap, we used Gauss's law to find the electric field everywhere, inside and outside of a uniformly charged sphere. And we saw that the left-hand side remains the same simplification each time in both scenarios, inside and outside, but that the charge enclosed changes when we were only enclosing part of the charge. We had to use the density, the idea of density, in order to figure out what that amount of charge enclosed was.